Okay, can everyone see the agenda?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Finance New Orleans Board of Trustees meeting roll call. Chair Edgar Chase IV,
Present.
Vice Chair Andronika Morris, Secretary Treasurer G. Wade Wooten,
Present.
Board Member Giselle Johnson Banks, Board Member Charles H. Brown,
And Giselle is present. Just let the record reflect that. She's just logging in.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
Board Member Charles H. Brown, Board Member Stephen Smith, Board Member Hunter Thomas.
Here.
A quorum is present.
All right. Well, thank you all. This is the November 2021 Finance New Orleans Authority Board meeting. Let's get right on into it. I see that we have no old business. We're going to move on to the approval of the consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes. We're looking at the minutes. That is the board meeting minutes from September 27, 2021, the November 8 board retreat meeting minutes, as well as the October 25th, 2021 board meeting minutes.
Correct. And Mr. Chair, let the record reflect that the reason that we have relisted the September 27th Board of Trustees meeting minutes is because we amended one of the items per Board Member Charles Brown. Thank you.
Got it.
You want me to make a motion for each of these? I don't know if they can be.
Actually, we just need one motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
It's a consent agenda item. Thank you.
So made.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you all. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, the meeting minutes and the consent agenda have been approved.
Thank you.
Moving on, there is no new business, so we'll move on to the Finance and Investments Committee report, presentation and discussion.
Okay. If you could scroll down to page 5, please.
Page what?
5.
5.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. So at the global level, the market has been advancing despite a host of uncertainties amid lingering supply chain and inflation issues. The most recent inflationary data came in at the highest rate in 3 decades, which is a bit unsettling. Consumer Price Index, CPI, jumped 0.9% in the month of October, well above the expectations of around 0.6%. The increase brought year over year CPI increased to 6.2%, the highest since December of 1990. An increase in energy prices was the main driver, but core inflation, which excludes the volatile energy and food segments, rose 0.6%, also more than expected. Most attribute the increased ongoing supply chain pressures, and higher consumer demand as the coronavirus recedes and more people re-enter the workforce. Excuse me. The Feds will begin reducing the pace of its monthly bond purchases, the first step toward pulling back on the massive, as we know, amount of help it had been providing the markets and the economy. Weekly jobless claims hit a new pandemic era low of 267,000. It's reported that there were roughly 10.4 million job openings in September, which is a slight decline from August's record, but above expectations. But consumers appear to be paying much more attention to higher inflation than the healthier job market. The $1 trillion infrastructure bill was also signed into law last week and will be headed by former Mayor Mitch Landrieu. States are slated to get anywhere from $2 billion to $45 billion funding for broadband, bridge replacements, repairs, electric vehicle charging networks, public transportation, and so on. That's all very encouraging. Louisiana at this point is expected to receive roughly $7.2 billion. That's billion with a B. The $1.75 trillion Build Back America plan, which includes universal pre-K, electric vehicle tax credits, paid leave, and many more priorities, is expected to be voted on soon, but no date has been set. Turning to the rates, the inflation surprise forced Treasury yields higher, with the benchmark 10-year U.S. Treasury notes yield ending the week around 1.55%. Muni bonds decreased beyond the 5-year curve, despite the sell-off in the Treasury market, driven by strong demand for new offerings. Mortgage rates moved higher over the month, likely as a result of inflationary pressures and prospects of a tightening monetary policy. And then turning to the local situation here. Locally, we continue to see unemployment rates move downward, with the most recent figure coming in at 7.9% for September from 9% in August. So that's a positive trend. And then if you could turn to page 7, please, which is the financial status report for October 21. So overall revenues year to date were 110,000 versus a budget of 335,000. What 225 difference? The shortfall is driven primarily by multifamily home. We did not close on any pilot or bond projects during the month, but we have several moving through the approval process, which may close before year end. On the expense side, we're favorable to budget by 336,000 year to date, with actual year to date expenses of 1.5 million versus a budgeted of 1.8 million. So that's good news. And again, it's primarily favorable across the board in all categories. If you could please move to slide 8. Thank you. Let's see, page 8. This page provides a 13-month trend of our revenues and expenses. Both, as you'll see, both revenues and expenses for the month were in line with year-to-date averages, with expenses coming in or lower than the prior month. Page 9 is the balance sheet. Thank you. So page 9, it's year-on-year comparison. And again, the sheet composition remains generally consistent, and there's nothing really noteworthy or material to report. Page 10, please, which is pathways, revenue, and expenses. So what you'll see here is in broad strokes, total revenue of about 2,000 year to date, expenses of 34,000 year to date. Give me a second, I'm just looking at this.
Oh.
Can you go back? Can you go back one? Thanks. Okay, thanks. Page 11, cash equivalents, month's end. 11, thank you. Our cash and cash equivalents were 9.6 million at September month's end, which is lower by 180,000 versus the prior month at 9.8 million. And I think that concludes the finance and investment report. Questions, comments, observations? Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Wade. I appreciate that. Byron, do you have anything in addition that you are presenting today?
No, I am not. But I would like to add for the board members that just a reminder that we will be approving the budget at the December meeting. Nothing has changed from the numbers that were presented at the retreat. I know Naj has sent out the presentation, so those numbers have not changed. There was one request from Ms. Morris in terms of updating the long-term projections with the cash reserve projections. So I will present that along with the budget, which should have minimal changes at the next meeting. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Byron. Okay.
Byron, can I ask you something? So the budget has to be approved, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, the only thing I've had a last second issue. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attend. Now that I'm thinking about this though, we've always historically been jammed with budgets at the end of the year, and it has to be done in the calendar year. I'm just worried that there may not be a quorum at the meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's written in the bylaws that way. I just know, and Damon may be able to give some context. I just know the past years that I've been here, we've done it in December.
Okay, I just don't want you to be jammed. So
yeah, Wade, the rhythm that we've been following the last few years is that we present the preliminary budget during the retreat, which is an unofficial preliminary, and then we give you an official preliminary during the November meeting. And as Byron just stated, there are no changes from the budget that we circulated during the retreat. So going into December, we'll take any comments the board has, any additional issues that need to be addressed, and we'll address those between now and the final budget approval, which will be in December. And, we typically close off the year with not only the budget, but the board signing off on the action plan for the next year. So that's the cycle that we've been using the last few years, and we're following that same format this year.
Damon or Naj, what's the date of that December meeting? I can make sure
the 20th, I think.
Yeah, it's always the fourth Monday of the month.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's fine. I didn't know if we moved it up or anything. Okay.
So that's going to be.
But just so to that point, we have adjusted the December date to accommodate the board. We know people start going on vacation earlier, or offices start shutting down in schools, et cetera. So if it's the board's desire to shift the board meeting date a little bit to accommodate making sure we have a quorum so we can get our budget approved, get everything we need done before we go into next year, we can make that happen.
Damon, should you maybe just
definitely need to make it happen, because the next December's board meeting would fall on is it the 27th? And or the 20th. If it meets y'all's pleasure, maybe proposing the 13th. That's a Monday. Or we could do a Friday on the 17th.
I think now what we could do is do a quick survey after this meeting, just to make sure we guarantee a quorum. In those days you just suggested, put that on there, and let's come up with one we know we'll have a majority, if not all, the folks present.
Okay, got it.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Okay, Mr. Chair, we're moving along to item number 6, which is the Programs Committee report. Andronika Morris is not in attendance, and so we're going to have Kelly take the lead on this item.
Thank you, Naj. In regards to the program committee report, there was minimal activity in October. So regarding the Community Support Fund, there was no utility assistance paid out in October. And that's on page 3, Naj. Next page. Yeah, I'm just reading from the executive summary. As you know, the New Orleans program has been decommissioned, so no activity there. We did have 3 originations for the Green Mortgage Program, totaling over $694,000. And I can confirm that those 3 originations did close in November. Regarding the Sustainable Developer Pipeline, minimal change there. We still have 19 active applications. We are hoping to have 4 pilot programs closing before year end, and that would be Christopher Park, The Reveal, H3C, and Grove Place. We did follow up. We know currently the closing dates have not been set yet by the developer and their council. However, we are anticipating them to close before end of the year. Any questions regarding any of the programs? Okay, thank you.
Kelly,
Yes.
are we done with this presentation?
Yes. Yes. So normally we go through just the executive summary, Naj, and then there's the backup slides for anyone that wanted to look or refer to the demographic information. I can cover those if you'd like.
All right. Happy to go to the active pipeline.
Yeah, so minimal changes is on the active pipeline. However, we are closely monitoring those 4 accounts for closing by the end of the year. Again, we're waiting on to hear from the developers and their council to set those closing dates. Any questions regarding any of those items on the active pipeline?
I think I'm good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is the executive management report, of which I will present now. Damon, you want to take it away?
Yep, thank you. Good afternoon, board members, and good afternoon to the public as well. My report today is focused on what's going on in DC. Next slide, please. There's some good news, some momentum building. Board member Wooten mentioned it earlier, that there's some movement in the infrastructure space in DC. And first thing that's happened is President Biden's $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill was signed into law on November 15th. And that's a big step for the nation in terms of basic infrastructure, roads, water, and energy systems, as well as broadband. And it also upgrades what infrastructure means, excuse me, what sustainable infrastructure means. And highlight on that note is that the former mayor of New Orleans, which I know we've all heard the news by now, but the former mayor, Mitch Landrieu, was hired as the infrastructure coordinator for this particular pool of funding. So I think that's a big boost for cities around the country. And I don't know that it puts us in any preferential position to receive this funding, but it definitely means that there's some like-minded individuals at the top of this, and hopefully this gets done in the right way for all of our cities. Next on that list is the Build Back Better framework, which is a $1.9 trillion plan. And this plan received House approval on 11/19 last Friday, but there's still a Senate vote needed. And that Senate vote isn't expected to happen until Christmas, or at least there's a desire to have it done by Christmas. But this framework specifically includes an allocation of 29 billion for the Clean Energy Accelerator, which is the national green bank that we've been working to develop and we've been a part of with the other green banks around the country through the American Green Bank Consortium. And so this would be a direct shot in the arm to that industry and provide the seed capital we need in order to scale our plans, and other cities and states that have plans like ours, they will likewise be able to scale theirs. So this would be a huge step in terms of development of green banks, and it would be a huge step for us as an organization. There's still some things that we need to do strategically as well as operationally in order to qualify and receive the green bank funding. So it's not an automatic, but we are in the right room. We're in good position, and we've been doing all of the things necessary to take advantage of this movement. So there's more to come there, but that's a big step in the direction of getting this done. And Kelly mentioned this already. We have sustainable developer deals that'll close by year end. We're also working on keeping that pipeline going. How do we get 10 deals per year in our pipeline consistently? And there are multiple ways that we're going to be working on making that happen. It won't just be one particular method, but there's going to be a art and a science to making sure that we have healthy pipelines across all of our programs. So not just for the sustainable developer, but also for sustainable home ownership and the resilient infrastructure and innovation platforms that we're building out. Marketing and communication is going to kick into gear early next year. Now that we have our plan in place, we have the Resilient New Orleans finance plan in place, and we also are starting to solidify some of the things we want from the investor community as well. So we're hosting our investor event in April of next year during French Quarter Fest. We're still working out the details, but we're ready to start having that communication with that community. So that's a reflection of how much development that has gone on internally and the hard work that staff is putting in to advance the agency's goals. And also we're, of course, going after the $100 million that we need in capital in order to reach our $1 billion community impact goal. And that 100 million is going to come in many different forms, like the Clean Energy Accelerator that I just talked about, excuse me, but also from community banks, from foundations, from the city of New Orleans. Other types of investors as well will provide the funding that we need in order to reach that long-term goal. So we're still, it's a jigsaw puzzle. We're taking in as much as we can and asking where it makes sense. There's no definitive pattern to getting this type of funding. Every agency that we know of is developing their own unique plan in order to get that initial capitalization to help them reach their new age goals. Because a lot of agencies around the country are doing what we've been doing, which is creating plans for the future, creating plans for the new world that we're moving into. So with more agencies talking about the same things that we are, having the same conversations, that's going to create a market which allows us to go out and get the funding that we need. So doing it alone, it makes it a lot more challenging, but doing it as a group or as a consortium, it certainly helps our cause. So we'll continue to try to deliver results in that area and provide the board with an update, because as you know, before we close on any funding, we'll have to come before the board for your approval. So not only will we talk about the funding that's needed, but also there's some other capital investments that we want to make internally. We talked about those at the retreat. We're going to come to you for those approvals as well. So we're making a list internally of what that includes. And as the time comes, we're going to present that to you for approval, but more to come. Next slide, please.
Hey, Damon, I have a question.
Yes.
In the Clean Energy Accelerator program, is there language in that bill? I know that, it's not final yet, pending Senate approval. Is there specific programming in that bill that details, what that program means and how we could use it for F&O?
Yeah, it's a moving target, because originally the plan was to create an independent agency or an independent organization which is called the Clean Energy Accelerator. But
Uh-huh.
what ended up happening is through all of the negotiations, it's now going to flow through the EPA. So it'll be, I guess, an EPA subsidiary or sub-program of the EPA. And the rules for accessing that funding are still being written up. But from what we can tell, we participated in I guess it was a research plan or a research study to outline what the program will look like. And we participated along with the other green banks. So we told them how we would use the
That's great.
funding, what we need it for. So they're designing the rules based on those interviews that we conducted. And we're waiting on them to come back to us with the next level of updates. So we were supposed to have a member from the Clean Energy Accelerator to join us. We couldn't make it work for the retreat, but we'll get him in for the December meeting so he can provide a full update on what it's going to take for us to receive and access that funding. And just for other, because I don't think it's just going to be governmental agencies. I think they may also provide access to CDFIs and other community types of financial institutions. So it's a work in progress, but we'll get a formal update in December.
All right, great. Thank you so much. That's exciting. Can't wait.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions on the updates before I move on? Okay, and just a snapshot of our performance. Cash hasn't moved much. We've been keeping a tight watch on our cash to make sure that we manage our net position, and so that we can, in order to access the types of programs that we just talked about, we need to maintain that reserve and be able to fund operations. So we're keeping an eye there. Our bonds outstanding are still flat until we start issuing bonds again through our programs. That number is going to stay the same. Kelly mentioned earlier that we've been having some movement in our green mortgage program. We've closed 7 so far since we launched the program in July. As a reminder, these are the very basic forms of the green mortgage. So this is an entry-level component to what we think is a long-term roadmap for homeowners in New Orleans. So first step is we're helping people get into the homes, and we're encouraging them to make those sustainability investments at the start. But if they're not ready, if they don't have the wherewithal to make those investments, then we're still going to keep track of those homeowners. We're still going to provide them education opportunities, and we're still going to provide them with funding opportunities 5 years down the line. So as they're turning over their financing every 5 or 10 years, we'll be there to have options for them. So this is just a start, but we have 7 of the basics so far, and we're trying to get more of the more intensive version of the green mortgage in 2022. And our multifamily mortgage originations, those will go up once we actually close those projects that we approved a few months ago. So we'll end the year with a total of 5 multifamily originations, and that'll help drive our portfolio assets well above 100 million, perhaps closer to 150 million, which is a big step for the organization. And we have a lot more room for growth. But I think that's a great sign that our portfolio has grown so much within the last couple of years, 18 to 24 months. And it's only the beginning. So all good news here, even though the numbers are going to trickle in a little bit over from a month-to-month perspective. But we're expecting to scale these numbers up as we attract more of that 100 million that I talked about on those previous slides. That'll help us drive more program activity. It'll help us do loan loss reserves to have more programs or more projects that are able to qualify, or more mortgages that are able to qualify, because we've put financial capacity on the table to help make these programs roll. So that's what that 100 million is all about. It's mainly to move this scorecard, and we'll add more elements to the scorecard as we collect that data. Like, what is the environmental impact? What's the economic impact? How many DBEs are participating in the installations of solar panels or stormwater systems? So we're keeping track of all of that information. We're preparing the templates, but that $100 million in capital that we need, that's going to help us fuel the scorecard. That concludes my presentations. Are there any questions from the board? Thank you.
All right, we'll keep going. There's no executive session, no other business. Naj, is there any public comment?
No public comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Well, I do want to say before we do adjourn is Damon and team, just to continue to compliment you all on the steps that you continue to take. Well, I remember strategizing at the retreat, not this past one, but the one last year, and realizing some of that vision is taking shape, and very excited about the new infrastructure bill that's passed, and hopefully the Build Back Better comes along as well. And those opportunities will continue to help us grow and to continue to tackle the vision that we want to. So congratulate you and your team, and let's keep pushing. And if there's not any other questions, I'll entertain a motion of adjournment.
We do have one issue. I noticed that because the fourth Monday was on the 27th, we did move the meeting to the 20th. So if anybody wants to move it up earlier, the week of the 13th, we're good. I don't like having a board meeting before our programs committee meeting. So it would have to be either that Friday, the 17th, or we could keep it on the 20th.
Okay.
Any particular preference?
Thought you were gonna send a poll out now. I think you can still put those 2 dates on there, but just send a poll out for the 17th or the 20th.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll send out a doodle poll. It's just sometimes easier when I have all of y'all together, so. I'll go ahead and do that.
17th or the 20th.
Yep,
I mean, for me, the 17th, I've got a project out of the country.
Thank you.
We'll just do it later. Okay.
okay. I'll get that out to you guys tomorrow. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
There's nothing else.
I move to adjourn.
Can we get a second?
A second.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
You
as
too
well,
as well.
everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Have a good one.